Yay.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Relentless. I am your host, Noa McCabe, and I am joined by my lovely co-host, Rukstela.
Woo! Still need to work on the intro.
I know. I need to find a new way to introduce you.
I can introduce myself. I can do that for the next ones too.
Okay, perfect.
I can take some of the load off since you are our trusty leader.
Would love that. Would love that. Take a load off.
Yes.
So I'm so happy that you are back today, and I think everybody is happy to see you as well. We are going to talk phases. So the idea that we had today was that we are going to talk about the different phases that each competitor goes through, specifically 5 of them that we parsed out. And I think that it's really important to break this down so that everybody understands what to expect as a competitor. You're not just bulking or cutting. You're not just growing or contest prep. There are different phases that you can expect to go through. And I think being able to discuss them and bring awareness to them can just help with, managing expectations, understanding that what you're going through is normal and that you're not crazy for having these different experiences. And so with that, where do you want to start? Which phase should we dive into?
I first want to say that the most important thing about having the different phases is just like knowing what to expect. I feel like taking away any confusion, like I wish I knew this, like getting caught off guard with things feels like such a buzzkill. So if we can take that away from anyone and they can just have a little bit of an idea of like what everything looks like, I feel like that makes the process much easier to settle into.
Yeah.
When you have like a name for it. Like, oh, this is a growth phase, or this is a maintenance phase, or a recovery phase, or health, whatever else. It just helps people kind of like, okay, this is where we're at, this is where we're going, instead of just like, we're bulking and I have no idea until when or how long or why or what this is supposed to bring up in me.
Almost like you don't have to be uncertain and just have like blind trust in, oh, my coach knows what they're doing, it's fine. Like you can have a little bit more awareness. And I like what you said, not be caught off guard, because I do think that that can sometimes derail progress. If you're like, well, I don't know if this is what it's supposed to be. I don't know if this is normal. Am I supposed to feel this way? And so just talking about it kind of takes that away and you're able to ride that midline just a little bit easier. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Let's go to everyone's favorite phase first, the contest prep phase.
Yay.
That one is so glamorous online. You have like all the deep lines. You're like theoretically getting a lot of validation from a lot of people. I know that everyone likes my pictures way more when I'm super lean versus when I'm thick girl season. So it looks really, really great online. And then when you're in it, it doesn't always feel super great. It doesn't have to feel bad. I want to make that very clear. Like if you are in prep and you feel good, and even if you are on low food and kind of like tired and fatigued, you don't need to feel like garbage to have a good physique. Yeah. I want to clarify that because I feel like everyone's like, you need to suffer. It's like, maybe not. Maybe we don't need to suffer all of the time. However, acknowledging that if you have a difficult time with being tired and low mood and low energy and low libido and not having as much time freedom, even because you're doing a lot of cardio, that can lead to you not feeling super great.
Yeah. I think that that's a very good point to make. And it depends on the person. I think that, for example, I've had athletes who really struggle the whole prep. And it is really hard for them to get lean. And it's one of those things where I said, hey, I know that you feel terrible right now. You're having a hard time. And it's okay. We're going to make it through. We're going to get there. And then on the flip side, like for somebody like myself who has gone through it so many times, contest prep isn't that difficult. It's almost expected that, oh man, I'm going to have some low days. I'm going to feel tired. I might feel really crappy, but that is, in my mind, that is what it is. And I get through it. And it's more, there will be dips, but like most of the prep is pretty steady. It doesn't feel terrible anymore. So you can also maybe take that with a grain of salt, but I've found that like the more that you do it, the more that you go through these preps, it's almost like reps, that it doesn't become easier, you become stronger. And so maybe that first prep or maybe that prep experience is really difficult, but if you continue with it, it might get to a place where, hey, that difficulty isn't the level of intensity that it was when you first started. So maybe there's a little bit of like a bright light.
Yeah. The pain in prep is not optional. That's gonna happen, but the suffering is. You suffering over, oh my gosh, my food is so low. Oh my gosh, I have 2 hours of cardio to do. Oh my gosh, I still have to lose 5 more pounds. Making it this big story of like what that's gonna mean and how much worse it's gonna get. It's like, no, you can just be like, oh, I'm a little tired today. I have low food today. It's a dig day. And just go with it. And I want to shout out my current wellness athlete, Reese, who's in prep right now. Like, she's on low food. Like, she's pushing it. Like, and she's got a lot of cardio. She's got like 90 minutes right now every day. And every time I see her, we have posing sessions every single week. She's like, just like a little tired, but like really good. I'm excited to pose today. It's like there's no hiccup. And I want to say that she's like a diamond in the rough. This is her first prep and she's handling it like she's done 12. Like, oh yeah, absolutely insane. And then there are other people where, like you said, it's like it's a grind like the whole time. And whatever prep experience you have is the experience that you needed to have. I'm very confident in that. Like, even if you had a really not pleasant prep, like my first one was very intense. Like, I was down to 30 carb, like 20 fat, 100 something protein, and 2 hours of cardio a day. So like, do the math on that. It was tough, and I handled it like it was really tough and just made this really big deal about it. But I needed that at that time. So yeah, contest prep. Pain is not optional, but suffering is.
Yes, I really appreciate the way that you frame that, because the suffering aspect, like the prep experience is kind of partly what you make it. So your mindset matters a ton in the prep phase, because if you're going to view, oh, my food is dropping, oh, my cardio is really high, oh, I'm really, really tired. If you're going to view those things as hard, painful, suffering, the grind, the entire prep is going to feel that way. But if you can embrace it and almost just accept, like what you're talking about, that, hey, this is what I have to do. This is what has to get done today. And that's okay. I might feel really tired at the end of the day, but that's okay. That's the prep. It's so much easier. And I have a hard time sometimes communicating that, because I haven't had a way, like what you just put it, of summarizing it succinctly, that like, hey, it's going to be painful. Prep is painful because you're going through extreme growth, like personal growth and development, and a lot of restriction. So it's both. You're expanding your perspective and hopefully like your worldview and like your personal development, and then you're restricting a lot of things, whether that is like the energy going in, the energy flowing out, all of these things. And so I think that can be a little bit difficult for people to manage if they're not expecting it.
Yeah. I would even amend that a little bit, that like prep is sensational. Like, there's a lot of sensations that come up when you're under recovered, when you're hungry, when you're tired, when you are on your last straw and your partner just doesn't put the dishes away and you're like, no. There's a lot of things that can come up in that space, and they're all just sensations. Like, you can choose for it to be painful. You can choose for it to be pleasurable. I have a friend who trains like an absolute animal, like completely bonkers, insane. And he does it with a super big smile on his face. Like, he is like, I'm genuinely experiencing pleasure while training. So just know that like these are all options that you can have. Like, you can choose for hunger to be a really intense, but also like not scary sensation. But if you're avoiding it all the time, like, oh, just need to have 12 heads of cauliflower today, so I don't feel hungry, it's going to just like have that much bigger of a hold on you. So embracing the sensations that come with prep, opening yourself to possibly more sensation than you have previously, which is why I think it's such a big amplifier for so many people.
It does. It's something that if you can be open to feeling those things, will just make it a little bit more manageable. And I think that this is like a great place as well to like roll into the next phase. So you have your contest prep phase, which is, I like the way you put it, very sensational, lots of sensations. And then we move into that post-show phase. And this, a lot of people have a lot of different experiences, but the main narrative that I see around post-show is, oh my gosh, it's so hard. It's way harder than the prep. And I used to actually say that as well. I used to be like, you know what, prepare yourself, like the reverse diet's much harder. You're going to be very tempted. It's harder than the prep, in my opinion, all these things. But recently I've kind of begun to try and change that story and that narrative just a little bit and reframe it, because I think if you're priming yourself so often that it's going to be so hard, then it is really, really hard. But if you can go into it again, like the prep phase, if you can go into your reverse diet phase thinking, hey, this might be hard, but I'm going to embrace whatever new challenges arise in this new phase that we're embarking on, it just makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah. I'm thinking both phases have their discomfort components to it. Having raging hunger when you're finished with your competition season and not having a reason to not eat everything in the pantry, that is a different type of intensity than the prep intensity, where there's really nothing holding you back except for what your coach has said, like, hey, like this can happen. You can, in fact, put on 20 pounds of body fat in less than a month if you're not careful. This was my very first experience. Little bitty 18-year-old Lexa was like, my coach gave me my post-show macros and I was like, nope, that's not happening. I was straight up like 0 chances that happening. And I messaged him like 3 weeks later and I was up like 18 pounds and I was like, hi, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem.
Something happened and it's me.
It's me. So it's like I've been there and I have had like one athlete that had this experience where they just like couldn't post show. It just wasn't in the cards for them, no matter how much we like preemptively prepped them for it. And it is just a different type of discomfort that I think a lot of people don't understand or can't prepare themselves for. And I was thinking like, oh, how do we prepare ourselves for situations like this? And I think the constant in all the phases that we're going to get to is going to be training. Like you can always practice dancing with discomfort in your training because we're always pushing that intensity. We're always like, more intensity is everything. So if you can like get to those edges, if you can expand those edges in training, then you can bring that as like your practice into your real life, which is like probably something I should have saved for the end, but I would have forgot. So
no, that's okay. We're just rolling with it. So you're good. I do agree with that. And it is the discomfort and also like for me, understanding the whys behind what's happening. Like, so especially in a reverse post-show phase, I'm really, really heavy on that educational component. And I don't know if that resonates for everybody, but I know like in my case, once I learned why it was so important to go through the reverse as best that you can for your health, like not for aesthetics, but like more so for the health reasons, that's what really kind of shifted my ability to get through reverses because I realized one, it's temporary. It's probably one of the most temporary and short phases as a bodybuilder that you'll go through because like a prep is what, like 20 to 30 weeks? If we're being realistic, like I don't really know anybody who can do a 12-week prep. Maybe
I did a 12-week
you did
my
a prep.
last time.
I was like, she did a 12-week.
But I wasn't super heavy before. I only had to lose like, I think like 12 pounds to be honest. It wasn't too bad.
And I think that like as the division, like bikini division has evolved, it's gotten to the place where you do have to spend like 1 to 2 years in the gym building up muscle. And with that will probably come a little bit more fat gain than we even realize. Like maybe you wear your weight really well. I know I do. Like I wear my weight well. So when it comes to prep and I'm like, what do you mean we have to lose 25 pounds? I'm like, what? Where? And then I'm like, you're right. You're totally right. But I think that that is the case for like a lot of people that they don't realize how much they have to lose. So the prep's really long. And then when you get to the reverse phase, the reverse doesn't have to be this long drawn out phase. I used to think that it was like, oh, okay, you know, as much time as you spend in the prep, like cut that in half and that's your reverse. Like I used to be very meticulous about it. And what I've realized is that truly you can do a reverse in about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like it really is individual dependent. It's like the mindset of the athlete, the resilience, the genetics, all of these different things come into play, but you can really reverse well within about 6-8 weeks. And so this phase, that discomfort, what I'm really trying to get at here is that it's temporary. And so if you can understand the whys and the reasons why you're feeling this hunger, this unquenchable, like empty black hole of a stomach, and you can get through that discomfort for just the 6 to 8 weeks, a lot more flexibility will open up. And not even like around food, but I feel like with energy, with feeling normal, you know, your clothes starting to fit better, your training really, really improving, and just being able to be flexible in life too, going out with your friends, spending an evening with your partner, doing things that require more energy, more flexibility come after that like post-show reverse phase has been, I guess, completed, in my opinion.
Yeah. And as far as the education component goes, I'm going to take a second here to talk about my favorite study ever.
Yeah.
Which is really, probably, it sounds really morbid to everybody, but I like to use this study because it does show what happens when you don't have restriction after you've been so restricted for so long. It's the Minnesota starvation experiment from the 40s.
Oh, wow.
So they basically took a bunch of men and they wanted to basically starve them to get them down, I think, 25+% of their body weight. So they could see what happens when the soldiers come back from the war, to see like what happens to them, how their hormones are going to be, what their internal state's going to be like, sex hormones, all the fun stuff. And the men lost all of the weight. And then as soon as they were finished with it, they were able to eat ad libitum. So they could eat as much as they want, however they wanted. And so many of them ended up in the hospital because there was a couple people who couldn't finish the experiment because one of them literally was eating out of dumpsters, like eating out of trash cans because he was so hungry. And another one, they cannot confirm or deny he did this to get out of the study, but literally chopped off his own finger, like cutting wood, so he would be excused from the experiment. So I'm really fascinated by what people will do when they're hungry. Like that's a very big fascination of mine. And that study was really, really helpful. And even after that, like I think like 10 years later, some of them went on to become chefs. Like they literally made their entire life around food after having such a big period of restriction. So if you're listening to this, the big takeaway is not to go, please eat out of dumpsters. Like, please don't do that. But also recognize that like there are mechanisms in the body that are so strongly wired towards finding food, because a lot of people did die of starvation hundreds and thousands of years ago, that when there is food available, the body's like, we need to stock up. We need to prepare, save for a rainy day because it's been rainy for a while and we haven't had anything.
Yeah.
So if you notice yourself like having these urges to like go and keep eating even when you're already full, know that this is normal. This is literally part of our biology. And if you're working against biology, at some point biology is gonna win. You cannot mindset your way out of being human. Sorry.
Yeah. And it's not about like at that point, it's not discipline or willpower. Like there are mechanisms in play. So I think with that, setting your environment up in the post-show phase for success is super important. And again, that goes back to like our communication. So a lot of people will have support systems that maybe don't fully understand the sport, and they want to shower you with food and snacks and take you out for drinks and go, on these all day like eating extravaganzas. And I know that because my wonderful friends who I love so much, who didn't understand the sport, the first time I was post-show, like after my very first show, we went out to breakfast, we went out to lunch, we went out to dinner. Oh, we went out to the bars. And it was just like, looking back, that's a lot. That is a lot on your body that has been restricted for so long. And if you can communicate that and set up with your support systems that like, hey, I appreciate y'all, I love y'all, and I want to go out and eat with you at some point, but just give me and my body some time. I think that that is really important. And do not stock up on foods that you want to eat during your prep phase, because post-show, you're going to eat all of them. Like I have not had a single instance where I used to do that, right? So I'm speaking from personal experience. I used to collect candies, special edition things, like, because especially as I would prep through the holidays, there would be, Halloween candy, Thanksgiving candy, Valentine's Day candy, Easter candy, all this stuff. And I would stockpile it. And I'd be like, oh, I'm going to have this post-show. Well, post-show, when you're having those hunger cravings, you have temptation, you don't have any guardrails, and the people around you don't understand, you're going to eat it all. And you're not going to feel very good about yourself.
Yeah. And why do we do this? Because we always celebrate with food. Society loves to celebrate with food. And again, I think this goes back to food not always being as plentiful as it always was. Like if you think of like the Thanksgiving with Americans and all the things back in the day, it's like they celebrated with food. It was like a coming together of people. And I think that's really beautiful. And also there are other ways to celebrate. They can both coexist. There is times to have your Thanksgiving dinner, to have your Christmas feast, whatever it is, but it doesn't have to be the only mode of celebration. There are so many other options. And if you can be the person to bring that up, that can be really helpful to show other people, give other people the idea of like, oh, I don't always have to go treat myself to a little sneaky snack when I've done something good. I can do something else for myself.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really important point. I also wanted to bring up for like the post-show phase that, oh my gosh, the train left the station. My thought is gone. Oh, we've been talking a lot about being careful with like adding your body fat on. I want to address that you have to put body fat on. And what we're talking about here is doing it in a like responsible way. So I like that you brought up that study because I'm guessing that most of them put large amounts of body fat on.
More than they
like,
had previous.
right. They overshot where they were previously. And if you love the sport and you want to be in it for the long haul, or even if you want to stay healthy, you need to make sure that you are putting on the body fat back on at a like respectable, like reasonable pace, but it does have to go back on. So I've seen two sides where it's like there's competitors who come off post show and they stay very regimented and rigid and strict and they don't put weight back on and their health is in detriment. Like that is affecting their health because the contest prep, like stage lean look isn't sustainable or healthy for most people. And I'm sure that there are exceptions, but point blank, we were not made to stay stage lean shredded year round, especially as women. So you have to understand that coming off stage, you are going to put that weight on, be okay with that, and try to put it on in a way that respects your body's like health and functioning. So what I mean by that is don't swing to the other side of the pendulum and start overeating, overindulging, but accept that, hey, you can have a meal off, like post-show meal off plan, and then get back to it. You know, do your best to adhere to that reverse diet plan because that's going to set you up for success moving forward. And you have to be okay with putting that weight on. Additionally, I don't think that it's helpful to have those ranges that people always say, like, oh, 10 to 12 pounds above stage weight or like 10 to 12% above your body weight. I don't think that's helpful because everybody's going to be different. And it depends on your feedback. It depends on your genetics, your structure, how tall you are, your body's set point, how long it takes to restore your hormones. Like all of these things come into play. And so if somebody is constantly telling you, if your coach is constantly saying you have to stay 10 pounds above stage weight, but that's not where your body is going to be happiest, that's not homeostasis for your body, you are going to be white knuckling and fighting yourself for so much longer, and it's going to hold you back in your journey. So I like to reiterate with my athletes, like, hey, it's okay if we're 20, 25, 30 pounds above stage weight. Like, that's fine. I've been there. I'm currently there, and it's okay. Like, I'm the healthiest that I've been in a really long time. And my athletes, they know that I prioritize their health. So that means like looking at their hormones, when are they getting their menstrual cycle back? How do their like thyroid values look? How is their just like general overall well-being? Like how do they feel on a daily basis? So like when you're in that reverse phase, I think it's really important to not just look at the scale, not just look at body fat gain, but also look at those other things. And like for women, I think it's really, really important to just kind of note like the menstrual cycle changes. And again, that's like going to be different for everybody. Some people lose their periods, some people don't. Some people, you know, it takes them a little bit longer to get it back than others. It's very dependent, but that's a really good marker of internal health.
Yeah, I love that. One thing that I've really leaned into a lot is letting the body lead the way. Your body will tell you what it is and is not ready for. And I've seen this in myself. I've seen this in my athletes when I've personally been 40 pounds above stage weight. Like that was me pushing way too hard, giving it macros that it didn't want. And like for the record, it was not too much carbs or fats. It was like overdoing protein for me. And I was just puffy and inflamed. My body was like, I don't want this. And as soon as we made a little switch, it was like down to 145, like nothing, like down 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Easy. So letting the body guide where you're going, that's kind of my entire coaching philosophy in one sentence, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's a really important note. I love that. Your body is constantly giving you feedback. It's constantly talking to you and telling you what she needs or he needs. And honoring that is so important, even in the post-show phase. And I feel like that can get tricky in the post-show phase. Do you think so? Because sometimes like your cravings or what you think that you need, it's going to be different than what your body's actually telling you.
I love this. Let's dive into this for a minute. I'm really excited. So there are going to be parts of your body that are telling you that you should do this thing. You should go have 12 steaks or whatever it is that it's
A
asking
whole tray
you
of
for.
crumble cookies.
Yes. Well, maybe anyway. There will be parts of your body saying that we need to go do this right now. And there are also going to be parts of your body that are saying, no, we can't handle anymore. So if your stomach is already full, you're having those pain signals already. There's literal pain happening. And then there's other parts of your body that are like, hey, we still need more food. And your stomach's like, I cannot process anymore. So it's who you listen to, and it's listening to all of the parts, because they're all speaking to you at different points. And instead of being like, oh, like I am hungry, I am the one experiencing hunger, it's like, oh, there's a part of my brain right now that's really hungry and not satiated, but my stomach can't handle anymore. So like, let's give the stomach a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back later.
Mhm.
So it's having that compassion to listen to all of the pieces and not making any one of them right. It's just taking the most compassionate action towards those ones and listening to all of the sensations, which if you have been in prep, hopefully you've been practicing doing that, listening to all of the hunger sensations, listening to the tired muscles, to the achy bones and joints, and just practicing that so you can apply it to the post-show phase.
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. I think that that's a perfect point of summarizing like how to navigate that post-show. Yeah.
What's our next phase? We're chatty.
Yes, I know. The next phase is our health phase.
Ooh. Well, I would argue that every phase, in some sense, is a health phase: internal, external, physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual health phase. But a lot of this is, I would say, like undoing past actions. Not that they're bad or wrong, but just that your body is needing a little bit of recovery time. So if you've been hammering food for a long time and you're noticing some insulin resistance, you're noticing that you're just feeling like lethargic and like not really making progress, it's like, okay, like let's take it a step back for a little bit and let the body, like, again, lead the way. Because I think we sometimes can get lost in our heads of like, we need to progress, we need to put on muscle right now. And your body's like, bro, I need my sex hormones to get better. I need my digestion to get fixed first. So let's handle these things so I can give this progress to you that you want.
I love that. And I think that you pointing out that like every phase is kind of a health phase is a good way to frame it, because I know sometimes when faced with like, okay, we have to do this gut protocol or we're going to fix an issue, we're entering a health phase, it can feel frustrating for the athlete, or it can feel like they're being held back by their own body. Like, oh, well, I really wanted to prep, but now you're telling me that we have to, fix these things first. That can be really frustrating. But if you can frame it as like, hey, this is just a temporary phase, and like every phase that we go through is going to be a health phase. I just think that that's a really good way to frame it. I like that a lot.
I feel like everybody wants to be healthy, but nobody wants to go through a health phase.
Yes. People want to rush the process. They want to get through it, not realizing that like this is part
The process.
The process. Yeah.
Yes. How do you think that you're going to be able to digest your food and have that go to your muscles if you have gut lining issues and you're not absorbing the nutrients that you're already putting in? How is that going to happen? It's not.
It's not.
It's not. How do you think you're going to put on muscle if you have no sex hormones? How do you think your body is going to feel safe enough to add on like 5 to 10 pounds of tissue, which is very metabolically expensive if you were like me 6 to 8 months ago and had a cortisol of 45 when it's supposed to be like 10?
Yeah. It's not.
It's not.
And as like frustrating as it can be, just accepting like, hey, this is what my body needs, this care right now, so that we can take steps forward. It's still the process. Like you're still on the journey to getting to stage. You just have this part of the process first.
Yeah. And people think of it as like a step back, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose all my muscle. Maybe sometimes for some of the health phases, you aren't training the way that you used to, or the way that maybe people say that you have to. Like you need to go -2 RIR all of the time, or you need to train maybe 2 days or 3 days a week instead of 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
People feel like that's a step back. They don't see that it's, oh, this is the way forward. It's almost like a slingshot. It's like you have to kind of like get through some of the muck. You got to clean up the apartment before you can have some people over.
Yes. Yeah. I love that so much. Actually, I was just thinking about one of my athletes, Megan. I want to shout her out. We're going through a health phase right now, and she has embraced it so wholly and like fully, just understanding that like we've pulled back on training. She's like at 3 or 4 RIR for like all movements. We pulled all cardio. Like it's just like very low impact, steady state walking. Her progress through the health phase, as she gets healthier and healthier, like Her gut issues are starting to disappear. Her skin is glowing, but her progress, like just physically, her body is morphing. And she's like, she's not, pushing hard like you would think a bodybuilder has to push hard to like grow muscle and like lean out. She's doing all of those things simply by going through this health phase and accepting that this is where she's at. Like everything is in place and where it needs to be. And even though it feels like to her, she was kind of frustrated and she was expressing to me that like, oh, I'm frustrated. Like it feels like I am taking a step back. I was like, no, this is such a great opportunity for us to step back and allow your body to get to a healthier, happier place. And then we can slingshot forward. And I think once she like really integrated that in, and I've seen it start to like change in her mindset and the way she shows up in our communication. I mean, her body is responding so quick. She's just dropping weight. And it's so cool to see. And I think that like a lot of health phases, if embraced, like if they can really accept and embrace this is where you are and that's okay, their bodies are going to do wonders for them. Like you're actually going to get the results that you want by embracing where you're at.
I would go so far to say that I've never seen someone go through a health phase and come out looking worse. I feel like they've always made progress. They always look better. Sometimes they even hit like PRs. Like I have one of my girls finishing up her health phase now, and we were in it for a while. Like it was one of those like grinders. It was a lot. And she's like 8 pounds above stage weight, and she's like lean and eating like so much food and just like literally thriving. I have not seen a health phase that I've gone through with someone where they just turn out worse. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that being healthy is going to be detrimental to your progress.
Yep.
I won't listen to you.
Yeah.
I just won't.
Sorry. All right. The next phase that we wanted to touch on is the recomp phase. And I think that this could also be kind of slated as like maintenance, but it's very underrated. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this phase of the journey.
Yeah. I feel like people a long time ago were like body recomp can't happen. And anecdotally, I see this all of the time. I would say most of the people that I have in general are in like some type of recomp phase. Like I don't really have a lot of people that are like straight up bulking and like trying to like add the fat and the muscle, or like even like maintaining how much fat they have and putting on muscle. Like it's usually a good mix of both. And you can say that this is like maintenance, you can say that it's a growth phase, but I think it's more of like a refinement phase where it's like you have all the basics down and now we're just getting better at all of those pieces. So like your training performance is skyrocketing. We're like able to add in a little bit of food here and there, maybe just like optimizing the macros that you have, either like rest days and training days, or like rest days, some training days, leg days, or weekdays, weekends. Like we have a lot more fluidity and freedom with what we can do with your nutrition and your training. And it's also a really great spot for you to explore what's going to work for you in this phase. So we can then like apply it to a prep, or we can apply it to a growth phase, or we can apply it to whatever else in the future.
Yeah. I think that that's a phase that most people like get bored in because they don't feel like they have the exploration piece. Because I think that a lot of coaches try and put forth this image of like all or nothing, 100% into bodybuilding, like you have to go in and go all out versus, okay, we are in this spot. Like there's no really show on the horizon just yet. We're trying to add a little bit of muscle tissue. But like you said, I'm not looking to bulk you. Like we're not looking to cut. We're just in that happy maintenance spot. That is such a great place to like play with all those different pieces. But if you're so serious about bodybuilding, or you've been told that you have to be so serious, I think that this is where a lot of people get bored. Like they fall off. They're like, well, I don't want to do this. This is boring.
Yeah. And I see that a lot with people who jump phases really fast. It's like 1 month they're cutting and the next one they're bulking and the next one they're in a health phase and the cleanup phase and like all of the, like I see that sometimes. And sometimes I think it's for keeping the athlete entertained, which is fine. Sometimes athletes do need that. And I don't say that in a way that like, oh, like you need to be entertained. Like it's not a negative thing at all. Like if that's what works best for you on your journey right now, that's fine. And like, I'm happy to do that with you, to be honest. It doesn't really like do anything for me. But I do notice that people who switch these phases so often and have difficulty just staying with one thing, they usually have like an underlying piece that's not really being addressed, or I've sometimes seen coaches do this too, where they like change the phase really often. And it seems like they're just trying to make things more complicated and fancy and complex than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Like what's wrong if you stay in the same phase for 6 months? I've had people in the same phase on the same training plan for 6 months and they look amazing afterwards.
I feel like most of my athletes have probably been on their training plans for 6+ months. Like, unless the athlete communicates with me that they do need that like more frequent switch up, I try and find a split or a plan that's going to work for them, that they feel flexible enough to like move days around, but it's just like your bread and butter.
Yeah.
So,
And I want to clarify that when we say like they're on the same training plan for 6 months, it doesn't mean that we're not doing anything in 6 months.
yeah.
Because I feel like people can be like, what do we need coaching for then if you're just going to like give us a plan for 6 months? Like I'll just do a consult instead. But they don't see that like sometimes we literally just change the exercise order. Maybe we add a set here and there. Maybe we swap out an exercise here and there. We go through your training videos and we're still telling you to reach for the stars. We're still telling you to push, to change these things, to try it out this way. Like there's still so much that happens in this like one phase that you can't see on the training plan.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I had an athlete where we did that. Like, she was on the same plan for probably almost a year. And what we had done is through that year, we had swapped in and out exercises. We had tried implementing different techniques. We had moved around the order of things. You know, I ended up taking out intensifiers and adding in top sets, like just messing with her training in a way that kept it like fresh and exciting. And she was able to progress so much on this one training plan. But like you said, on paper, it's like, oh, well, then what's the point of like coaching, or what's the point? The point is like being okay with being in that phase and using it as exploration. Like, you're not getting on stage anytime soon. You're not in a detrimental like health place where you have to go through a health phase. You're able to really have some freedom there.
Yeah.
So I really like that you said that there's a lot more to it than just like one training plan for 6 months. It's not the exact same for the 6 months. You are making the progressions and we're making changes and we're overseeing everything. So the last phase that we wanted to touch on was growth phase. And I find it kind of funny because for men, I feel like they love the growth phase. Like, they want to get big. And then for my women, I've seen that growth phase is one of the more like sticky places to be. And I think that that's probably due to like cultural standards and also like fitness industry expectations. Like, men are supposed to be big and jacked and large, and, you know, women are supposed to be like, haha, very small, petite, and like cute muscle. Also, can I just say, I really hate the phrase pretty muscle, because like, I just think muscle
Is pretty.
Like,
It's redundant.
show me ugly muscle. Sorry. But anyways, tangent. Growth phase. Currently in a growth phase myself. And it's actually become one of my favorite phases. I love contest prep. But I think the contest prep is my favorite. And then outside of that, it would be growth phase. Would be like my life favorite.
Yeah. I would say, as far as what to expect in the growth phase, if there is any body image pieces that are a little sticky, I notice that's when it tends to come up the most for my female athletes, because you notice yourself getting a little bit bigger. And of course, the point of a growth phase is not to put on 10, 20 pounds of fat. Like, that's obviously not what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep it in a decent ratio. So you are still healthy, and we don't need to reverse that with a health phase.
Yes.
So putting on the appropriate amount of muscle, as much muscle as your body wants to put on and maintain. And at the same time, you will notice that there is a little bit of softening going on in your physiques, like maybe like a little bit less lines, maybe a little bit more puffy. Like, I know for me, my face, whenever I'm in a growth phase, my face I got these little chipmunk cheeks and they like to get a little bit bigger. And it's like, oh, like maybe that isn't my favorite. Why is that? What can I do to work with that? So it's not a big concern of mine, because I notice a lot of people, when they want to cut a growth phase short, it's because they're uncomfortable with how they look and how they are in their skin. And of course, we want you to be confident in how you look. And of course, we want you to be comfortable in your own body. And at the same time, is this an opportunity for us to look a little bit deeper at how you define yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. I find that if you have tied your self-worth to what your physique looks like, then you really struggle in this area. And I know like personally, that's something that I've gone through for sure is like once you get through that prep phase, you really love that physique because you worked so hard for it. So getting to the opposite side of the spectrum, it can be really difficult if you feel like you're only worthy or valuable or pretty or confident in a leaner body. So I really like that you brought up that idea that there might be underlying body image issues if you get uncomfortable in your growth phase and those things start to come up instead of freaking out and being like, okay, I have to start a cut or I have to start a prep or cleanup phase or whatever it is and kind of panicking about it and wanting to run away from it. What if we leaned into it? Like, what if we asked ourselves, why do I feel this way? Is it truly that like my clothes are tight and it's like uncomfortable on my body, or is there something deeper?
There are so many things that I want to say to that. It's
Yeah, I can see the wheels turning.
I hope that everyone can kind of listen to this. And this has kind of become more of a what can you expect and what are the potential pitfalls in each of the phases that you have. I hope listening to this, you realize that there is a lot more to fitness. There is a depth to it that we don't see a lot of on the superficial social media materialistic side of the industry. This is a literal full, all of your bodies, your physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual bodies, they are all tested, transformed, evolved, changed, grown, destroyed, created all over again in all of these phases. So if you're like, oh, I'm just gonna cut or I'm just gonna grow. No, you can't just affect one area of your life and expect that it doesn't flow into the rest of them. This will, I don't want to say challenge you because it doesn't need to challenge you, but it can just present you with new things to feel into, to look at. It gives you more material to work with, to know yourself better, to go through this life better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I love that. I actually think that that would be great to speak about on our next podcast with body image, and we'll like really deep dive into that. So if you perked up hearing Lexa really dive into that component, I think that you guys are really going to love the next podcast that we have for you. But I did also want to kind of add in that, especially if you're a bodybuilder, the growth phase is likely where you're going to spend the majority of your time.
Mm-hmm.
So until you get to a level where either A, you've accomplished all that you want within bodybuilding and you're ready to move forward or move on or, leave the stage permanently, until you get to that level though, you are likely going to spend a majority of your time in a growth phase, putting on the muscle or the density or the shape that you need. And so that really means that like you have to be comfortable with that expansion, like literal growing of your own body. And I think that that can be really challenging for a lot of us who haven't gone through it. And so just like you said, expecting the discomfort. For me, I'm really big on telling my ladies, like, feel free to go shopping. Buy clothes that actually fit you, that make you feel good, make you feel confident. And those are going to be like your life clothes because we eventually have those like prep clothes,
Mm-hmm.
the like shorts that are a little bit shorter and tighter or the sports bras that are a little bit more compressive. Those are really great for prep, but they're not going to be really great for when you're trying to put tissue on. So just kind of having that awareness and realizing that that's okay. And that, hey, you get to treat yourself. Go buy yourself a pair of nice pants or, shirts that make you feel good, that don't squeeze your arms, things like that. Almost reframe it as a positive thing that you now get to do because you're growing, I think can kind of help in those phases. And embrace where you're at because you are going to spend more of your time growing than you are going to in a prep.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Don't buy clothes for prep. Don't buy clothes because they're a certain size. There are so many things. We'll go into that in the next episode.
Yeah.
Catch us there.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to wrap all of this up, those are the biggest like 5 phases that we see competitors going through. Contest prep is likely going to be more of the shorter time. Like it is a 20 to 30 week prep, but that is going to be, the 20 to 30 weeks. Then you have your reverse, then any health things, recomp, growth phases, like those are going to take up a majority of your years. So just being okay with each of those phases, knowing what to expect. And then we talked about like potential pitfalls, potential obstacles, things that you might experience. And just having that awareness can really help you guys when you're going through these different phases. So I hope that this was useful. And if you guys wanted to chat about anything further, you have any questions, comments, concerns, you agree, you disagree, please let us know. We love and welcome any and all feedback. If you could, please like, share, subscribe, and send this podcast to a friend. I would really, really appreciate that. And until next time, stay relentless.